Hello to viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Science Thursday, we're going to talk about offshore wind power. So let's dive right into it. Now, wind is a very big source of renewable energy. That's an absolute statement. However, there are some constraints to it. Now, primary constraint is it's very location specific, meaning you can't just plonk it anywhere you want to. It can only work in some places, selectively, so to say. However, it does have the benefit. If done correctly, you could find many places on Earth that will give you 24 into 7 power. Yes, the power intensity will go up and down, but it will not be like solar, where it's like night equals zero. That will not happen. It may end up giving you more power at night, less power in day, but it will give you power. And the biggest hurdle that wind power has is like making small turbines. It's very inefficient. You always want to make as big of a turbine as possible. Now, problem with that is like, okay, let's say you make a turbine, let's say that blade is around 60 meters. Now you may be like, okay, that would be hell of a trouble to transport. Yes, that's the reality. Like right now, there are many places on land which you can have huge wind turbines and make a lot of electricity. However, simply because of transportation, people are not investing in it. Simply it's like, how the heck you're going to transport the damn thing? And you have to be mindful, like 60-70 meters, like that's old school. We are slowly reaching a point where each turbine blade itself can reach 100 meters. So let that sink in. Like it's almost impossible to transport by land, and on top of that, even if you can manage that, it does take a lot of land space. And it's not like, yes, you can see green grass near it, does not mean you can actually grow crops there. Not to mention, like, it would be hassle even if you have a good enough thick layer of soil there where you can grow crops. It's like, how the heck you're gonna drive tractor so close to it? So fundamentally, it takes a lot of space. Transportation is a nightmare, and they are very noisy, so people are not very fond of it, let's just say. And then there you have bird conservationist issue, and then you have 10,000 other issues. People really don't like them. It's like they like what these puppy do, but they don't like it to be in their backyard. So what can you do? Well, offshore wind. Now, one of the primary thing that offshore wind gives you is that transportation and installation is super easy. Because if you open your mouth to any government, is like, I want 100 square kilometer of area for wind turbine, they'll just laugh you out of the room. But if you say on the seaside, it's like, okay, that's doable. And that's the whole point. Like a road truck is limited. However, when you're talking about barges, many barges are like hundreds of meter. Like we are talking about container ships, sizes that are reaching to kilometer level status. Like they will be measured in kilometer. That's how big these things are. So on transporting large objects on sea, it's not an new thing. It's super easy to do. So that allows you transportation. Then we come to installation. Again, it's flat thing. Like again, you will detect the land. I'm talking underneath the seabed. How good is the seabed? You will not decide to put your wind turbine without analyzing that. But once you analyze that, installing it is also easy. Of course, it will require specialist tool, but you're like, okay, this is tuk 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 tuk. You can keep doing as much as you want. So that's the whole thing. And because of the fact that it is over the ocean provides a very, what we call, slick surface. Now, benefit of the slick surface is that wind catches up speed simply because of solar energy. Sun hits up one place and night side cools the one. That creates a wind basically engine, so to say, and that is moving all around the world. Now that energy is being dissipated as heat whenever it's going through something called friction or turbulence. Now those are really high over land because you have stuff on land. But what happens on the sea surface? Flat, nothing. So that's why the wind is very clean and stable. Benefit of that is that your turbines will work for much longer hours and give you much more power. So people want that, and huge turbines are possible because flat out, this is one thing that you have to understand. Like heck, rocket industry is limited by it simply because SpaceX wanted to make Falcon 9 much bigger than they actually made it. Why they made it so skinny? Simply because they had to fit it below bridges, and bridges had a fixed height limitation. Same goes for wind turbine. They wanted to do amazing wind turbines on land, but they simply could not build it. Now right now, all the cutting edge wind farms, they are next to a seaport simply because they can just transport it very easily. So that's the whole point. So huge turbines are possible simply because you can build the damn thing and transport it, and then there are no people on the sea that will gonna complain to you. So that's the whole reality of it. Every Tom, Dick and Harry wins in this sort of scenario. Now, how does this puppy work? Well, you start with a base. You lay down some gravels or stones or whatever have you, depending on that location. That will give you what we call erosion resistance. So you don't just wash away very quickly. And then your seabed is selected very specifically. And then you drive a pile known as monopile. Now, depending on the seabed condition, depending on your height requirement and all that jazz, that will be selected for that. And then you have main turbine plonked on top of it. So from turbine's point of view, it's actually acting like exactly how it will act if it was on top of land. There is no changes in it. And then you have a lot of cables going from turbine to turbine, or some cases turbine to one substation. That is going to give you a lot of substation is going to collaborate the energy. Basically each turbine could be, let's say it's a 6 megawatt turbine, then you are talking about around 33 kV. Does not mean it's exactly have to be 33 kV. Some are higher voltage, some are lower voltage, but generally 33 kV is the average. And then you are talking about next generation big ass turbine. Those big ass turbine can easily go up to 60 kV. So in those sort of scenario, those high voltage line, AC line, generally goes into a substation. That substation is on sea itself, and then it pumps up the voltage even higher. It will collect, let's say 10 turbines, 20 turbines, depending on the design, as many as it needs to, and then it's gonna pump the energy on higher voltage through land. Now be mindful, if the land is very far away, basically the substation basically on the sea floor versus substation on the land side, how if it's let's say 50 kilometer plus, they're never gonna use AC. Let's say they're gonna use what we call high voltage DC. The primary reason for that is the higher the distance and under sea water, your capacitance loss is too goddamn high. You will lose most of the energy just transmitting. So you can have like 1 gigawatt farm and you can barely send anything. This was another issue with China's one of the Three Gorges Dam issue. Is like the dam is in remote location, people are in other location. If you want to transport hundreds and thousands of megawatt of power over long distance, AC will simply dilute that power. It's like AC is coming 1000 megawatt, 500 megawatt, zero. That's how badly it consumes the power. So you have to utilize high voltage DC system if you have to travel very far. And then it can't go very deep in the sea. Basically, if the sea floor is very deep, it will not work, simply because the pylon cost will become too high. Not that physics stops us or even engineering. We know the technology because of the oil industry. We have amazing technology when it comes to handling the sea. We have like mind-bogglingly amazing technology. Like you're talking about like systems that have the technology to pile onto something that is like 200 meters below, 300 meters below. It's like we know the technology. It's just that price per turbine will go too high. Basically this turbine is a money making machine. It's like I'm gonna charge you, let's say $25 million, and I'm gonna make energy that is like, let's say, a value of $60 million. Then you are like, return on investment is, but let's say your investment cost itself goes to like, let's say 60 million. Yeah, it's pointless to do. That's why they do not want to be too deep in the ocean. Whereas like, installation cost, pylon sizes, cost, all that, they have to be balanced out very carefully. So that's how the system part works. Now you have to understand the another aspect. It takes a lot of unique infrastructure. Same way, whenever you're talking about like container ships made everything easy to ship on earth, but it does not apply to basically huge things like wind turbines. Now special boats are generally built and used for this thing. So you're talking about something very simple like pile diver barges. These barges are like the primary thing that will go there and just plonk the main pylon, and it will use concussive hammer to keep it down into the seafloor. So from its point onwards, it's like it's acting like on a land. So there is a special boat with special hammer arrangement with special cranes just to do this. It's like my job is just to hammer on piles. You can understand that there are many boats like this. So that's how high demand is. That's why Europe is kind of capable of achieving that 0% carbon output by 2050. It's actually feasible for them, and they have already built all the infrastructure needed. So they have many boats. They don't have like, okay, we have only one contractor that has one boat. They have many. That's your pile driver. That's the step one. Then you go to another aspect where you have the actual wind turbine carrying boat. Now this boat, if you like, why the heck it looks like it's standing, that's the limitation of another limitation of the how deep you can go. These boats are specifically designed to anchor on the sea by standing. Basically it will go like this. So it has like 4 pylons. It will drive onto the sea. Why it does that? So it gets absolute stability. You can have as many system to keep your position actively checked as much as you want, but nothing will be just having standing on 4 legs. So it has like giant pipes that goes down and stands there. It's like almost permanent anchor there, and then the cranes are stable enough where they can manage something that big. So turbine transports are there. Then you have cable laying barges, because while you may think even a normal boat should be able to handle 33 kV line, it can, but it can not also, simply because because it's an undersea cable, the insulation is extra thick just to make sure that it can withstand erosion, and you ideally want to bury it under sea at least 1 meter to 1.5 meter. So that does require specific what we call cable laying barges. Now these barges, now the cable that are going from turbine to turbine to substation, they are not that big of a deal. However, substation to shore, those puppies are big, as in they are generally measured in the capacity as in like like how many tons your carousel can handle, basically your spool system can handle. So they will specify like I can handle 600 ton, some big ones can go that's I think the biggest 30 50 ton is like nothing. It's like, yeah, you can barely go a few kilometers. And these things are also used for undersea fiber laying down. So you can understand right now we have a lot of technology that was built for, some technology were built for construction, some built for oil platform technologies, some built for fiber optic system. All of these are coming together and we have the core infrastructure needed to build these sort of things. I provided a lot of video download, please do check them out, they're kind of interesting. So what we can expect in the future? Well, first thing is people realize that offshore wind works, they make money. That's the amazing part of it, and people are pouring money like there is no tomorrow on this. So that part taken care of, awesome. However, the still limitation part is it's idiotically expensive. Like you can take the same turbine that is making, let's say 8 megawatt. If you can reduce 8 megawatts a bit high, let's say 6 megawatt, and you're like, okay, 6 megawatt, but I reduce its installation cost, the return on investment becomes much more quicker. Now how do you make it cheaper to run? Floating turbines. The idea is the turbine part is still the same, only the control electronics are changed, because you do want to make sure that if it starts to oscillate, there are some active braking system, active dampening system where it changes the pitch and yaw of the blades to manage it. So you do want some variation in the system, but you want it on a floating system. Benefit, you can put it much further into the sea. Benefit of that is air is even more smoother, more closer to laminar flow, which you want, so that's awesome. And then you have to basically anchor this utilizing cables rather than actually plonking on the ground. You will be just using cables, so that is much cheaper than pylon, and it will be floating, so it's much easier to just float it there. So you can have like two contractors. One contractor is like, yeah, float 10-20 of these pylons wherever you want to put there. Another boat will just bring the normal turbine. So cost wise, like installation cost, rather than let's say $50 million per turbine, it could go down to let's say 5 million. I'm just talking about in averages, do not go with that. That's, I don't think it's the exact amount, but you get the point. Like if you can reduce the cost in terms of basically how much money it takes to install these things, that's awesome. Then even if it's let's say only 10% better compared to shallow waters, that's awesome. 10% or more energy is awesome when you're talking about let's say gigawatts of energy. Yeah, this farm has 600 gigawatt. 10% more of that, that's a lot of money. So that's why people do want to go into this. Cheaper installation is main thing. However, one consequence will happen, that they have to have high voltage DC. There are some wind farms that utilize high voltage DC, not all of them, some do. But the moment you start to go into deep waters and everybody will start utilizing it, this part will become expensive, high voltage DC. However, because of the development in technology, gallium technologies, we know how to make these puppies more efficient, more powerful, and more capable. So future is kind of amazing. At this point in time, wind technology is so powerful, so capable. We have refined the technology. Right now we are just optimizing the cost. Basically, we reached the iPhone era. Now we have to reach current iPhone era or current Android era if you really want performance. So that's the whole thing. We got the technology, money makes sense. It's just how to make it more efficient, so more and more can be plonked. And if done correctly, it has more than enough energy to power entirety of the planet without any issue. Simply because yes, it will have intermittencies where it's gonna go have up and down, but it will never go to zero. And if you have multiple farms in multiple location, most of them will be working at any given moment of time. And then you add it with solar, you're done, you go home, you're done. So that's why European Union is not stupid when they are saying, oh, we're going to remove carbon producing energy systems by 2050. They can actually do this. They are surprisingly ahead when it comes to these sort of technology. So this was my presentation on basically offshore wind technologies. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.